Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon for new updates. I am not him. But in his story, I found myself. As a Filipino, as a Catholic, as a believer in something deeper than doctrine. In a time when silence can thunder louder than words, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle has just broken his. What he revealed isn't just a reflection, it's a reckoning. A painful truth buried beneath decades of tradition. And now, that truth is rising. What he shared has sent tremors through Vatican walls, headlines, and hearts alike. Known for his gentle voice, disarming humility, and bridge-building diplomacy, Cardinal Tagle's quiet strength has long inspired both admiration and caution. But his latest revelation isn't just another church update, it's a spiritual upheaval. What he exposed challenges the very foundation of loyalty, authority, and faith. Behind the red cassock and calm smile lies a man grappling with something deeper, a personal awakening with global consequences. What exactly did he uncover? And why now? Beneath his serene reputation is a history marked by cultural tension, personal sacrifice, and quiet resilience. One moment in his past, long ignored, has come to light. And it changes everything. The story of Cardinal Tagle begins with heritage. A rich, complex identity that shaped not only the man, but also his mission. Born into a Filipino-Chinese-Spanish Catholic family, Luis Antonio Tagle grew up surrounded by diversity, not as a concept, but as a way of life. His mother, Milagros Gokim, of Chinese-Filipino descent, and his father, from the Spanish-era Principalia of Cavite, passed down a mosaic of values rooted in faith, discipline, and perseverance. I don't think the word rest existed in their vocabulary, Tagle once said. From them, he inherited grit, patience, and an instinctive empathy for difference, traits that would define his spiritual leadership. Even as a young man, Tagle stood out, not for ambition, but for the quiet force of his dedication. His academic journey reflected this depth. He earned a Bachelor of Arts in Pre-Divinity from Ateneo de Manila University, then pursued a master's in theology at the Loyola School of Theology. Later, at the Catholic University of America, he completed a doctorate under renowned theologian Joseph Comanchac, writing a groundbreaking dissertation on Pope John Paul II's teachings on episcopal collegiality. Comanchac would later call Tagle one of the finest students he had taught in 4 decades. Tagle's time at San Jose Seminary, run by the Jesuits, became the crucible of his spiritual transformation. There, he absorbed Ignatian values, discernment, humility, and radical service. Surrounded by thinkers and priests who lived the gospel with grit and grace, his calling to the priesthood crystallized. One former classmate recalled, "Nobody doubted he would go far, not because he wanted power, but because he radiated purpose." Tagle's academic and spiritual training collided with the realities of the world. Influenced by liberation theology and community-based work, he began to see faith not just as a doctrine to teach, but as a force to liberate. At Ateneo, where critical thinking met social justice, he witnessed how theology could confront poverty, injustice, and marginalization. It shaped his view of the church, not as an ivory tower but as a refuge for the broken, a voice for the voiceless. That vision became a way of life. As a priest, Tagle balanced teaching future seminarians with pastoral work in local parishes. Whether at San Carlos Seminary or Divine Word Seminary in Tagaytay, he believed theology must step beyond the walls of academia. It had to be lived. On the streets. In the homes of the struggling. In 1997, his growing theological reputation earned him a seat on the International Theological Commission, appointed by Pope John Paul II and overseen by then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger. This elite group of global theologians shaped key church doctrines. And there Tagle brought something rare, intellectual rigor wrapped in warmth and accessibility. He also contributed to the landmark History of Vatican II project, writing on Pope Paul VI's nuanced leadership during the Council. His work shed light on how the Church could blend authority with collaboration, ideas he would later embody. But Cardinal Tagle's mission has always gone beyond books and councils. His commitment to the poor and displaced became central to his ministry. In sub-Saharan Africa, he partnered with local churches to build schools and vocational centers, giving young people a path out of poverty through skills, not charity. In the war-torn camps of Lebanon and Jordan, he sat silently with grieving families, Syrian and Iraqi refugees who had lost everything. He listened more than he spoke, and in that silence he offered dignity. One refugee later said, "He looked us in the eyes, like we mattered." This wasn't diplomacy, it was incarnation. Faith lived, not proclaimed. What I thought was a disaster, Tagle once reflected, became a witness to faith. God always has a better story to tell. His humanitarian work scaled globally when he became president of Caritas Internationalis. Under his leadership, Caritas expanded its disaster response programs, reaching people in the wake of typhoons in the Philippines, famine in Africa, and earthquakes in Latin America. He emphasized dignity-based aid. No handouts, no savior complex, just solidarity and empowerment. At the heart of his mission is a powerful belief. Faith must speak the language of culture. Tagle is one of the Church's leading voices for inculturation, the integration of local traditions, music, and language into Catholic worship. He champions indigenous chants, native instruments, and rituals that reflect people's roots. For him, the gospel is not a foreign implant, it grows from within. He sees evangelization as a dialogue, not a conquest. The gospel doesn't erase culture, it elevates it. In contrast to colonial models of mission, Tagle insists, we must find where God is already present in the culture and let the gospel speak through that. His approach has helped communities across Asia, Africa, and Latin America reclaim their place in the Catholic narrative. To make this real, he pushes for culturally grounded priesthood formation. A pastor must smell like his sheep, he often says, meaning clergy should live among, speak with, and understand the people they serve. This includes learning local languages, respecting elders, and honoring customs. Through this, Tagle is shaping a new kind of priest, one rooted in both the gospel and the ground beneath his feet. By honoring culture without compromising truth, Tagle offers a new vision for the Church, inclusive, responsive, and deeply human. His work reminds us that Catholicism is not a European artifact. It is a living faith, breathing through every nation and tongue. And in a time of division, his message bridges not just cultures, but hearts. Today, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle stands as one of the most inclusive and compassionate voices in the global Catholic Church. From LGBTQ+ inclusion to migrant rights, he calls for language that heals, not harms, for policies that embrace, not exclude. And in doing so, he offers more than reform. He offers hope for a church that listens again, believes again, and leads with love again. In a time when the Catholic Church finds itself at a crossroads, between tradition and change, doctrine and dialogue, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle has emerged as a voice that urges compassion over condemnation. Rather than clinging to rigid, doctrinal language, Tagle champions what he calls pastoral sensitivity, the idea that words wielded carelessly can either heal or harm. Like Pope Francis, he places mercy at the heart of ministry, an approach that has both inspired hope and stirred concern, especially among more conservative factions within the Vatican. But Tagle's influence isn't confined to theology alone. On the world stage, he's taken a clear stand against the rising tide of ethno-nationalism and populism. He warns that such ideologies twist religious teachings, replacing love with control and compassion with division. For him, the Church is not merely a sanctuary for worship, it must also be a global advocate for justice and human dignity. A mission that sometimes places him in tension with peers who prioritize moral clarity over nuanced engagement. While others draw firm lines, Tagle insists on meeting people where they are. He believes change is not born of reprimand, but of relationship. This softer, more human-centered approach has drawn criticism from those who fear it dilutes doctrine. Still, Tagle remains resolute. Dialogue, he says, is not a threat to truth, but a journey toward it. A conviction rooted in lived experience and humble faith. As the Catholic Church navigates a rapidly changing world, Tagle's vision feels both challenging and hopeful. A church rooted in love, not fear. One that embraces complexity without sacrificing its core values. His global prominence, theological depth, and personal warmth have made him a leading contender to succeed Pope Francis. Fluent in several languages and deeply attuned to cultures across continents, Tagle is particularly influential in parts of the world where Catholicism is growing: Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia. His ability to connect across linguistic and cultural divides makes him not just a theologian, but a global diplomat for the Church. Yet even he recognizes the weight of leadership. "I am not Pope Francis," Tagle once said, "but we worked together for years. Still, Many see in him a continuation of Francis's legacy, emphasizing inclusion, environmental care, and solidarity with migrants. That vision excites younger and reform-minded Catholics, but raises alarms among traditionalists who feel the Church's moral direction is becoming unclear. And he's not without rivals. Other contenders, like Cardinal William Goh of Singapore, offer a more reserved traditional perspective. While Goh speaks less on controversial issues, his diplomatic skill and theological conservatism make him a favorite among those seeking a more restrained papacy. Critics argue that Tagle, by contrast, can be too vague or too outspoken, especially on politically charged topics like Philippine politics or church relations with China. Indeed, Tagle's tenure as Archbishop of Manila overlapped with one of the Philippines' most turbulent political eras, the presidency of Rodrigo Duterte. Amid Duterte's brutal war on drugs and inflammatory rhetoric, some saw Tagle as too quiet, too cautious. While he issued a strong pastoral letter in 2017 declaring, "We cannot govern the nation by slaying," his reluctance to rein in politically outspoken priests in his archdiocese drew criticism. Was his silence a form of resistance, or a failure to lead? The media weighed in heavily, with some outlets portraying Tagle as subtly partisan. Although he never endorsed any political group, public perception painted him as a quiet critic of Duterte's government, raising fresh questions about how deeply religious leaders should wade into political waters. This debate resurfaced on the global stage during the Vatican's controversial agreement with China, which sought to unify the underground and state-sanctioned branches of the Chinese Catholic Church. As head of the Vatican's evangelization efforts, Tagle's silence during these tense negotiations raised eyebrows. He later offered a reserved defense, acknowledging the complexity of the situation and stating, "One always has to dirty one's hands with the reality of things." For some, it was diplomacy. For others, a missed opportunity to show moral clarity. Given his Filipino-Chinese heritage and the Philippines' own tensions with China, Tagle's quiet approach left observers questioning whether cultural ties held him back. In a moment that demanded clear solidarity with persecuted believers, many felt Tagle remained too cautious. That changed. Tagle's launch of the Faith and Solidarity Initiative marked a dramatic shift in his global leadership. No longer content with diplomatic silence, he began championing persecuted Christians with new urgency. The initiative focused on 3 pillars: humanitarian aid, diplomatic advocacy, and spiritual care. Beyond just material help, it used the Church's global voice to pressure governments into upholding religious freedom. At its heart was a call to presence, to stand beside the suffering, not just in prayer, but in action. "Let us pray for our bishops and priests who are persecuted and falsely accused," Tagle said, his voice no longer reserved but resolute. In confronting the moral cost of silence, he declared, "The test of freedom and truth is when you are persecuted. How easy it is to change truths, for political expediency or out of fear." For many observers, this was a turning point. After years of being viewed as overly diplomatic, Tagle was now speaking with clarity, courage, and conviction. Whether this bold move was a long-awaited reckoning or a risky gamble remains up for debate. But one thing is clear: Tagle is no longer just the theologian of mercy. He is becoming a moral voice for a church in crisis. So what do you think? Was Cardinal Tagle's latest stand an act of true leadership, or a delayed reaction to mounting pressure? Let us know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful insights, and check out one of the 2 eye-opening videos on your screen now.